What's going on, guys? Well, today I have another knife review for you, and we're talking about a custom fixed blade by ARGUS knives, and they're located all the way in Croatia. This particular model is called the WYRM or WYRM. It's WYRM. It's possible that's an acronym, and I'm trying to pronounce something that doesn't exist. But either way, that's the model here. Very cool knife, very interesting. This one is 12.2 inches overall with a 7-inch blade. All right, the blade steel on this is an 80 CRV2. I will talk more about that in just a moment if you're not familiar with it. But this is also offered in an 01 tool steel. Okay, if that floats your boat a little bit more, you can also get this in 01. I really like the fact that we have that raw steel for the flats, and then of course just a satin finish for our grinds. Comes to a very lean edge, very, very sharp. Actually took a little bite out of me. I'm sure you guys saw those other videos. It's got a decent point on it, not extremely pointy, but not something that's going to snap off either. As far as our handle scales, this one has a double wood combination. Obviously contrasting colors. There's a dark wood for the bolsters, all right, and then there's a medium wood for the handle grips or scales. There are different combinations depending on what you want. These are made to order, and I should tell you guys that there's about a month turnaround time. Okay, so it's not, I think he might have one or two knives that are in stock ready to be sold right now, but I believe all the WYRMs or WYRMs, whatever they're called, they are made to order, so it's about a month wait on these. Okay, so keep that in mind too if you guys are looking to order these. But he does both wood and micarta, any kind of combination. So if you didn't want a bolster, you could do just a solid micarta, solid wood, any combination thereof. Okay, I really like the red micarta spacers here, both in between the blade stock as well as separating the bolster from the handle scale. Just a nice touch, looks good. The red's nice contrasting color. Just super, super thick on this one. 1/4 inch stock. It is full tang, obviously, as you can see there. But a 1/4 inch at 6.2 millimeters. I mean, this gives that ultimate wedge effect that I talk about all the time. We have these super thick knives. Awesome for batoning. Most of the vast majority of testing I did with this was kind of bushcraft type work. Not very good with the small things, just because it's a heavy knife. It is so thick, so you could do, you could choke up a little bit here, and you could do a little bit of whittling and stuff, but you're gonna be, you're gonna be hard pressed to do that for a long duration of time. And this thing's kind of made to split wood and chop and bang around and use a little bit rougher. It is amazing, of course, because it has such a wedge effect with that really thick stock coming down to a nice lean edge. So it's very good for batoning. And it is awesome at chopping. It really bites deep into wood, and I might do some demo videos in the future again, because it's a pleasure to use this knife. The biggest drawback, and I mean every time I pick it up, I've gone out 2 times specifically to do testing on this one alone, and then there are 2 other times where I brought this with a bunch of other knives for testing. And the one thing that always stands out, even though it's awesome, is that it's just hard to grip. Okay, and there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, it's so smooth. I mean, it's beautiful looking, but there's no gripping, there's no texturing. There's no really distinctive curves in this handle. I mean, you can see it. I mean, it's very subtle. All right, so we have a natural finger trail here, underneath that blade, but this doesn't really have an extreme curve towards the bottom. Nothing's really locking my hand in addition to the fact that this is a 1/4 inch blade stock with standard thickness scales on there. It makes a very wide, very heavy knife. Okay, so lots of possibility that's slipping out. There is the lanyard hole on here. It does have brass pins, all right, solid pins for the construction. I don't always recommend lanyards to be used with heavy chopping. I used to use them years ago until I heard of a horror story where a guy was chopping something and he lost his grip on the knife, and he had a lanyard around his wrist. The knife, obviously flung out of his hands and swung back up and took a big bite out of his arm. Okay, so ever since I heard that story, I actually read it on the forums, I stay away from wrist lanyards on fixed blades. Sometimes I'll put them on, but generally speaking, I don't. I did put one on for this knife for testing. It worked, much better, but of course, the whole time I'm thinking about that particular story and hoping that I don't let go of the thing and have it swing around, because it is extremely sharp and it is very heavy. It bites very deeply. I got a little cut. I made a separate video on that. Cut in the finger, literally just touching, testing the edge, and it rotated in my hand because it's smooth, and it was just resting on my finger, and it just bit right in. So yeah, that's the biggest downside. Really the only downside to this knife, in my opinion. If you like the design, The quality's certainly there. It's just smooth and it's heavy. All right, and of course, it's going to have the same drawbacks that any shorter knife that has this thick of a stock would have. In other words, when you're doing like, you know, 1/4 inch stock and you're really, you know, manning it up out there, because you do get a lot of fatigue, okay? When you start getting fatigued, and you get, what happens? You get sloppy. So you can't get fatigued and sloppy and have a smooth handle and a really sharp blade. I mean, that's just an accident waiting to happen. So although this is definitely a user knife, just consider all those factors, okay? You might want to throw a lanyard on there if you're really going to get, you know, heavy into chopping and stuff like this, because, I mean, especially when you start sweating. I use this with gloves as well as without gloves. It is comfortable without gloves, but again, just, you know, the added grip you're going to get from some even basic mechanics gloves is really going to help you with this one. Super thick, that's the downside. Let's talk about the positive. I love the steel. The steel is awesome. Again, this one is available in 01, but this particular model is in an 80 CRV2. If you guys are not familiar with that, it is a hard carbon steel. It's actually the same thing as 1080 Plus. Now, 1080 Plus is made by AKS, which this steel is. It's 1080 carbon steel, but it has chromium and vanadium added to it. How the story goes, as far as I've heard it, is that AKS originally called this 1080 CRV2, and people thought it was Chinese made. So they switched the name. It's literally the same steel. They just swapped the name to 1080 Plus, okay? So Argus is just using the old, you know, name for that steel. Literally the same stuff. By the way, it did come with a card, you know, for the collectors out there. Signature, date of birth, you know, of course, the handles and the steel here, and the model, WYRM. All right, let's talk about the sheath here. I do like the sheath. Very simple, Kydex. Obviously, lots of eyelets here, so you can, you know, tie it down any way you want. I have not checked to see, though, if this is Tech-Lock compatible or not. I don't know how the spacing is. There is a drainage hole on here. The only downside is I kind of like my knives to click in to the Kydex. If you guys know what I'm talking about, this one just kind of pressure fits. If you listen here, you know, it's not really clicking in. Really not a big deal, but of course this is a knife review, so it might be something you're concerned with. But it's definitely not going to shake out. I'm not holding the knife, I'm holding the very edge here. All right, this thing is not coming out very easily. So even though it's not snapping in like I may prefer, it's very secure. Okay. So price. What's the price? Price on this one is $300. It is one of the more pricier models from Argus. They do offer other knives, different sizes, different models, of course, and different prices. Is it worth $300? I believe it is. I've compared this directly to other customs in the price range. I think you're getting your money's worth in the quality. You're definitely getting in the performance, with the big caveat again being that you have a I don't know how to describe it, a lack of grip in the handle, which of course is concerning for someone who's going to be doing bushcrafting or very heavy woodwork with a knife like this. Definitely awesome for a collection, obviously, but as far as function, it's like 90% there. If it was just a little bit thinner, okay, if there was a thinner stock on here, or if you kept the same stock and just, you know, brought those scales down to about 50% of what they are now, you would be able to secure a much stronger grip on this thing. If you're going to keep it this thick, you got to have some kind of texturing. At least just, I mean, of course, is my opinion. So I recommend if you were to get this knife, use it with gloves. I had really no problem with gloves at all. It's when I was barehanded is when I was a little bit concerned, where it started to slip a little bit. I had to keep, you know, kind of repositioning my hand, because, you know, you grab a knife, naturally you grab it however you grab it. But I had to kind of hold it here and just really, like, you know, I'm up to bat or something, you know, and I want to get that really good grip on my baseball bat before I start swinging. So I was just a little more conscious of that because it was so smooth. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That is the WYRM, or WYRM, from Argus Customs out of Croatia. Very cool knife. Like I said, about a month turnaround time if you're interested in these. Of course, you can contact them directly through the site. You know, ask about pricing, because pricing might change depending on, you know, the setup. Of course, depending on the setup will also, you know, depend on how long it's going to take to make. It might take longer than a month. Who knows? Maybe it'll take 2 weeks. Just depends. But this one took about a month. So anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you soon. Take care.